picture the scenario, right? You're sitting down to master something entirely new.
Oh yeah, like a massive new enterprise software your company just forced on everyone.
Exactly. Or, maybe you decided you're finally going to learn a really challenging coding language, like Python.
Right, something dense.
So you open the dashboard, you look at the interface, and you physically feel your brain just stop.
Total cognitive freeze.
Yes, it's a complete freeze. You're reading the words on the screen, but nothing is sticking at all.
Because, well, the expectation in our, hyper-productive culture is that we should just be able to jump straight into the deep end.
Right, like we should immediately synthesize all this complex data and just start creating brilliant solutions on day one.
Which is crazy. I mean, we constantly demand that people operate at the absolute highest levels of critical thinking without ever giving them the tools to build the necessary cognitive runway first.
The runway is so important.
It is. Trying to analyze and create before you have the basic vocabulary of a subject encoded in your brain isn't just difficult. It fundamentally violates how human memory works.
And that is exactly why we are here. Welcome to today's deep dive. I am so thrilled you're joining us because our mission today is to completely decode the science of how we actually acquire and master new information.
So can we a fun one?
It really is. We're taking a legendary architectural framework of learning and pairing it with this modern, highly dynamic toolkit. The whole goal is to figure out how to stop hitting that wall of cognitive overload.
All right, to fix the freeze.
Exactly. So we're looking at two specific sources today. The first is the classic educational framework known as Bloom's taxonomy.
A classic for a reason.
Totally. And the second is a practical toolkit called EduProtocols. And a quick, very crucial pronunciation note for you as we set out, that second subject is pronounced EduProtocols.
EduProtocols.
Yeah, think of the word education, EduProtocols. Okay, let's unpack this friction we were talking about.
That pronunciation, actually, it's a great hint at the philosophy behind the toolkit. It's designed to bring a sharp, highly engaging edge to the process of learning.
I love that.
Yeah, and it does this by addressing the very real psychological friction that happens when we're confronted with massive amounts of new data.
Right, so let's get into that friction. I like to think about the brain like a computer trying to run a massive new program.
Okay, I track with that.
If your working memory, which is like your brain's RAM, right? If that is entirely eaten up just trying to remember what a specific button does or what a basic acronym means, your system just crashes.
You get the blue screen of death.
Exactly. You have zero processing power left over to actually do anything creative or analytical with that software.
And to understand how to avoid that crash, we have to look at the blueprint of cognitive processing,
Right.
which is Bloom's taxonomy.
Right. So if you look at the source image we have for Bloom's taxonomy, it's structured as this six-tier pyramid.
It maps out cognitive rigor.
Yeah. And the top tiers are what everyone wants to jump to, right? Like analyzing data, evaluating arguments, and finally creating original work.
The penthouse of the pyramid.
Penthouse, exactly.
Yeah.
But the entire structure rests on the bottom two tiers. Remember, at the absolute base, and understand just above it.
And the source material for our deep dive today focuses entirely on what it calls the foundational beats, meaning engineering that massive, wide base of the pyramid.
Right, because the verbs the blueprint associates with that bottom remember tier are things like defining, listing, and memorizing. It's the raw data.
Knowing the formula for the area of a circle.
Right. Then you step up to understand where you actually start making sense of that data. The verbs shift to classifying, describing, explaining. So building knowledge is like building a house. You can't design the penthouse, the create tier, if you haven't poured the concrete foundation of remember and understand.
That's a perfect way to look at it. We often gloss over these lower tiers because they sound, well, incredibly elementary to a professional audience.
Oh, for sure.
But failure at these foundational levels is precisely why adult learners abandon complex hobbies, or why corporate training programs fail so spectacularly.
Because they skip the concrete.
Exactly. If you cannot rapidly recall the foundational terminology, the higher-level analysis will always feel overwhelming. The bottleneck of all learning happens right here on the ground floor.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back a little.
Go for it.
The reason we try to skip the ground floor is that historically the process of memorizing raw data is just miserable. I mean, think about your own experiences.
Staring at flashcards.
Staring at flashcards until your eyes glaze over, or reading these dry corporate glossaries, taking high-stress pop quizzes. It's rote memorization, and it introduces this massive amount of anxiety into the learning process.
It really does.
So if Bloom's taxonomy tells us we absolutely must gild this base, how do we do it without the mind-numbing misery?
Well, that is the exact problem EduProtocols, EduProtocols were invented to solve. If Bloom's is the theoretical architecture, EduProtocols are the boots on the ground.
The practical application.
Right. The source text we're analyzing frames this beautifully through a music metaphor. It describes EduProtocols as a B-side playlist.
Okay, I like that.
The concept is that traditional learning routines are the A-side, right? The standard, overplayed, often really boring methods we just talked about.
The flashcards.
Yeah, the flashcards. The B-side playlist remixes those routines to hit high notes of both cognitive rigor and intense engagement. It keeps learners from getting stuck on skip.
So cool. And we are specifically looking at episode 1 of this site playlist, which is entirely dedicated to the foundational beats.
Laser focused on those first two tiers.
Remembering and understanding. So let's drop the needle on track 1. This first protocol is called Fast and Curious.
So Fast and Curious targets the absolute bottom of Bloom's pyramid, the remember tier.
The raw data.
Exactly. The source text describes it as the high-energy opening act. It's designed for vocabulary and fact acquisition. And the overarching groove of this track is speed and gamification.
So sticking with our music metaphor, Fast and Curious is about learning the basic lyrics of a lesson.
You have to have the lyrics memorized before you can start the remix.
Exactly. But I have to ask about the mechanics here. The text says the groove is speed. When I think of speed in a learning environment, I instantly think of a timer ticking down on a math test.
Oh, the worst.
Right, which spikes my anxiety through the roof. How does adding speed fix the misery of rote memorization?
Well, what's fascinating here is what the speed is actually attached to. A ticking timer on a final exam introduces what psychologists call an affective filter.
An effective filter.
Yeah, it's basically a wall of anxiety that literally blocks your brain's ability to encode or retrieve information.
Wow.
Fast and Curious flips that dynamic. By replacing the high stakes of a traditional test with fast-paced, highly iterative, gamified repetition, it strips the anxiety completely out of the equation.
So it's a difference between like a high-stakes performance and a low-stakes video game.
That's exactly it. Think about how people learn the incredibly complex mechanics of a video game. They fail constantly.
Yeah, all the time.
But the failure is fast, the feedback is immediate, and they instantly try again. Fast and Curious uses platforms that allow learners to rapidly sort, match, or identify terms in quick bursts.
And if you get it wrong,
If you get it wrong, there's no penalty, no red ink on a paper. You just see the correct answer and move on. Neurologically, this replaces the cortisol spike of testing anxiety with small dopamine loops of rapid improvement.
I can see how that completely changes the feeling of the remember tier. I mean, if I'm trying to learn the syntax of a new programming language, sweating over a blank text editor trying to remember where the semicolon goes is terrifying.
It's paralyzing.
But if I spend 10 minutes playing a rapid-fire sorting game, matching syntax rules to their functions, I'm building that mental library of facts almost as a byproduct of the game. I am securing the foundation of Bloom's taxonomy without the dread.
And once that mental library is stocked, you can't just stay on the ground floor.
Right, you have the lyrics memorized, but now you have to prove you know what the song is actually about. You have to move logically up one step on Bloom's pyramid to the understand tier.
Where learners must explain ideas and concepts.
Which brings us to track 2 of our foundational playlist. Thin slides.
In slides.
The text tells us that while track 1 was about speed, the B-side groove for thin slides is synthesis. The mechanics of this protocol are fascinatingly strict.
Very strict.
You give a learner a complex text, a broad topic, or a dense concept, and ask them to distill it down to its absolute essence. And the rule is they are allowed exactly one definitive word and exactly one single matching visual anchor.
One word. One picture.
So what does this all mean? I have to play devil's advocate here because why restrict someone to just one word and one picture? Isn't more information better?
It feels reductive until you analyze how people actually behave. If we connect this to the bigger picture, at the understand level of Bloom's, giving someone the space to write a massive paragraph often provides them with a place to hide.
Wait, a place to hide? Like hide their ignorance?
The illusion of knowledge. We see it constantly in classrooms and boardrooms. Faced with a complex concept, people will frequently copy and paste blocks of text or loosely paraphrased industry jargon.
Oh, stringing together buzzwords they can't actually define.
Exactly. They construct a wall of text. To an observer, it looks like they have synthesized the information. In reality, they are merely parroting the source material without internalizing the meaning.
They're acting as a mirror rather than a processor.
Right. So when you introduce the severe constraint of thin slides, one single word, one single image, that hiding place is instantly demolished. You cannot parrot a 50-page strategy deck in one word.
You just can't.
You are forced to evaluate every single piece of information, filter out all the noise, and identify the absolute irreducible core of the concept. Forcing them to pick just one word, an image, proves they have truly synthesized it.
It makes me think of those famous sketches by Picasso.
Oh, the bull sketches.
Yeah, where he draws a fully detailed, realistic bull, and then in the next sketch he removes a few lines, and the next sketch fewer still, until he captures the entire essence of the bull in just 3 or 4 single, continuous lines.
Yes.
It takes vastly more mastery to draw the 3-line bull than it does to draw the realistic one.
That is a brilliant analogy for cognitive synthesis. I mean, if your topic is the 2008 financial crisis and you were only allowed one word, the internal cognitive debate you have to engage in is immense.
Is the core concept greed? Is it deregulation?
Right. To pick the best word, you have to deeply understand the entire interconnected system. The constraint itself is the catalyst that forces your brain to process the information deeply.
So thin slides guarantees that the learner has actually processed the data they memorized back in track 1. This sets us up perfectly for the final protocol to wrap up the foundational beats. Track 3 is called Frayer a Friend.
Frayer a Friend. It operates on the same understand tier of Bloom's pyramid as thin slides, but it adds a totally new layer to the B-side groove, which is collaboration.
So the mechanics here build on a classic graphic organizer model, but with a twist. Students work together in pairs to dissect a term or concept. They have to move far beyond a simple dictionary definition.
Much further.
They identify key characteristics of the concept, provide concrete examples of it, and then they apply what the source text explicitly calls the secret sauce.
And the secret sauce is where the true cognitive heavy lifting happens.
It's requiring the learners to contrast their examples with non-examples. They have to specifically identify and defend what the concept is not.
To understand why this is so powerful, we have to look at the limitations of standard definitions. A standard definition tells you what a thing is. It's static.
Right.
Our brains are designed to categorize information. But if we only ever look at positive examples, the boundaries of that category remain incredibly blurry. When you force two learners to sit down and debate a non-example, you introduce cognitive friction. You map the exact borders of the idea.
It's defining the negative space. Let's use a real-world example to see how this friction plays out. Imagine 2 entrepreneurs trying to define the concept of a startup.
Okay.
The static definition might be a newly established business seeking rapid growth. A clear example is easy. An early-stage tech company with venture funding. But when you hit the non-examples, the debate begins.
Is a newly opened local bakery a startup?
Right. One person might say, well, it's newly established, so yes. And the other person pushes back. No, a startup is designed to scale rapidly and disrupt a massive market. A bakery serves a fixed local market, so it's a non-example.
And in that moment of disagreement, the two learners have to negotiate the meaning. By discussing why the bakery is a non-example, they suddenly realize that scalability is a mandatory characteristic of a startup.
The concept goes from a flat sentence on a page to a razor-sharp understanding. And doing this collaboratively with a partner, Frayer, a friend, is the key.
It takes the definition out of a textbook and turns it into a living conversation. Discussing what a concept is versus what it isn't makes the understanding much more durable.
You have to articulate your reasoning and defend your choices.
You're actively wiring the neural pathways together. This is the ultimate realization of the understand tier. You possess a robust, deeply rooted comprehension of the landscape.
Why spend an entire deep dive just on the bottom 2 tiers of a 6-tier pyramid? Let's pull all of this together. We started with the architectural theory of Bloom's taxonomy. We purposely ignored the glamorous top tiers.
The heavy hitters.
Right, the analyzing and creating. Instead, we looked at how pairing that theory with the engaging remix-style routines of EduProtocols, EduProtocols, transforms rote learning into a dynamic, low-anxiety foundation.
Because without the ground floor, the penthouse collapses. By mastering these foundational beats, fast and curious, thin slides, Frayer, a friend learners, secure the rhythm needed for the future.
You cannot step up to the plate and swing at the heavy hitters if you do not have your footing perfectly established.
Exactly. Locking in remember and understand without anxiety is what allows students to eventually handle the complex processing and application coming up later in the playlist.
The instinct to skip the line, to jump straight into the deep end of a new software or strategy is so strong, but it leads to that cognitive freeze. Your RAM gets overloaded. But by utilizing the B-side playlist, you radically alter that experience.
You really do.
You use Fast and Curious to memorize raw data without the dread. You use thin slides to force true single-word synthesis, and you use Freya a Friend to map the exact borders of a concept.
It's a profound shift to actively constructing knowledge.
Yeah.
And, building on that idea of active construction, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over based on track 3.
I love this.
Think about your own job or a complex hobby you love. We usually define things by what they are. But try applying the secret sauce of Freya a Friend to your own life today.
Defining the negative space around yourself.
Exactly. What is a specific, highly detailed non-example of what you do? What is a task that looks incredibly similar to your role, but fundamentally crosses the border into what you absolutely should not be doing?
Wow.
How does defining what your role isn't instantly clarify what it is?
That is such a brilliant exercise in drawing boundaries around your own expertise. Take that question with you, map out those non-examples, and use these foundational beats to keep your own learning protocols on repeat. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.